Mike. All right, let's get it going. I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. I'm sorry. That was so rude of me. Get you guys your money back, right? All right. Let me know in the chat where'd you find this from? The live stream, the podcast, the newsletter. I always like knowing. Here's what Adrian said after taking the PPP class. He said, I feel like I'm using AI for the first time. Absolutely brilliant class. Thanks, Adrian. All right, you guys already found your way around here as you were waiting for me to figure out technology. It's like, I don't know, shouldn't this AI dork know how to work a microphone? Probably. You guys already found your way around here. But if I'm going to try to get to your questions live. You can just put them in the chat. At the end, I'll go to the QA. So if I miss your question as we go along, which I shouldn't because we have a very small group in our pro classes, just go ahead and put it up in the QA. All right. And here's what today is all about. So the normal Prime Prompt Polish was essentially ChatGPT 101. It was prompt engineering 101. This is about changing the way that you use and that you do business with ChatGPT. All right. So here's what we're going to go over. We're going to go over basics, an expert chats refresher, a refined queue refresher, a PPP refresher. Those are all just kind of one big thing. All right. Then we're going to get into the good stuff, the post PPP tweaks, a GPT quick dive, how to train ChatGPT on your data, some of our favorite Chrome extensions, sharing trained chats, and advanced data analysis basics. All right, so does that sound good? Y'all ready? After keeping y'all waiting for 7 minutes. All right, let's party. If you're here, you probably know the basics about me, but I was a writer for a long time. I worked at a nonprofit. We became an agency for Nike and Jordan Brand. And most of you guys know me from Everyday AI, where we talk about AI every single day. We bring on super smart people and you can ask them questions. Then we put it all out in our newsletter. So let's do a quick review of the basics. All right. And this has changed even today. All right. So a lot of people are confused about, the free plan versus the paid plan. All right, so ChatGPT Plus is different. It's changing every day. So as an example, a couple hours ago, OpenAI just released the desktop app for Windows users. So the first time Windows users have access to the ChatGPT app. So yeah, but that's for paid only. So so many of the new features that are rolling out, Search GPT, advanced voice mode, although you get a very limited preview with the free plan. But for the most part, the only thing that the free plan and the paid plan share is the model, is the 4.0 model by default, right? But to even use the new O1 preview model, that's the reasoning, kind of the strawberry model, the model that can kind of show logic. So to use O1 preview, O1 mini, or the desktop apps, you do need the paid plan. All right, that's important to keep in mind. Updates, tons, so many. Let's start in the middle. So we have the new 4.0 mini. We have the new models, O1 preview and O1 mini. Those are the reasoning models, strawberry, Q-star, whatever you want to call them. We have model switching. We have now the Windows app as well as the Mac app, and then the advanced voice mode. So let me know in the chat, have any of you guys used the new O1 preview or O1 mini models? And let me just put this out there now. Really, what we cover in Prime Prompt Polish, it's not really applicable for these new models, right? They're still very new, very fresh. And even the world's leading experts are still, trying to figure out this model because it's a pretty big shift from what we've all had access to for many years. So the big difference with the O1 model is it kind of does a lot of simple prompt engineering by itself under the hood. So, as an example, what I like to say is previously, you would give ChatGPT a destination, and then essentially you do some prompt engineering along the way. So think of those as kind of like rest stops, right? Now, all you really do is with O1 preview and O1 mini is you still give the destination, But then ChatGPT is like, nah, I don't really need you. I'm going to find my way to the destination. I'll figure out the rest stops. So it is different, but a lot of what we teach in Prime Prompt Polish is not applicable to the O1 preview and the O1 mini models, because they do this kind of chain of thought reasoning under the hood. So I always like to be very transparent about that. But for the most part, I do think the overwhelming majority of use cases that people use are probably going to be still the GPT-4o model. I say that because right now, the O1 preview and the O1 mini model, they can't work with anything. You can't work with your data. You can't work with the other tools that ChatGPT has, right? Browse with Bing, DALL-E, advanced data analysis, right? So O1 kind of lives in a silo, okay? So still, I would say for the most part, you're probably going to be using the 4.0 model for a lot of your day-to-day use cases. Does that make sense, y'all? Can I get one of those little thumbs if that makes sense? Hopefully it does. So yeah, you can even see in this little example here. Oh, wait, I have an example coming up. So one thing that we're probably going to be talking about a couple of times is multimodality. All right. That's a big thing. Because you're going to see ChatGPT is constantly changing. So another thing for developers today, they just allowed you to pass through audio, right? So all these other tools that you're using in your day-to-day, they're going to start to get more powerful as well. So I think when we think about ChatGPT, we really have to think about multimodality, and we don't just think about inputting text and looking for text outputs, right? We think about using our voice. We think about voice outputs. We think about, inputting a screenshot, right, as your input, and then outputting code. So I really want you to think of, multimodality in action as we go here in PPP Pro. Another thing, DALL-E, let's be honest, it's not good, but I still think it's worth paying attention to, because we do know that a future version of probably ChatGPT will have Sora photos. All right. So I think it's important, even though no one would ever use a photo like this for actual purposes, aside from just playing around with it, I still think it's important to use and understand how this works, right? Because in theory, we might have Sora in a future version of ChatGPT. We might have Sora level photos available in ChatGPT. So I still think it's important. So one thing with DALL-E is prompt handling. So I put in something simple prompt here that says create a photo of the Chicago skyline in the summer, realistic, boats in the water, planes in the sky, air and water show vibes, right? And so what DALL-E does under the hood that most people don't realize is it changes your prompt completely. All right. So it kind of does what it thinks is to improve your prompt, and then it'll give you your image. All right. Another thing that people don't really know about ChatGPT is you can do some in painting. So you can click that little select button. You can go highlight something. And then in this case, I highlighted the planes. I said, make the planes yellow and black, hit enter. And then for the most part, it keeps the rest of the photo the same and then just turns the planes yellow and black. All right. It's generative AI. It's rolling the dice. It might not work every single time, but I like to bring up these other modalities early on in this PPP Pro course, because we're talking about using it for different aspects of your business. And you also have to prepare for what's to come. That's one of the biggest, in most common misconceptions, that when we work with companies, not trying to be mean, but they're like 6 months in the past, right? If you're not looking ahead and if you're not preparing for what's to come in the future, you're going to get left behind. So, even in instances like this, I would never say use DALL-E for anything, but you really have to get used to working with the different modalities inside of ChatGPT. Then, like what I talked about, even if you don't have a use case right now for O1 Preview and O1 Mini, I think it's important to understand how it works. If you read our newsletter, which you should, Copilot, they actually just came out with their own version of this reasoning model. I gave you guys a walkthrough the other day, but in this example, I said, create a simple Chrome extension that grabs a color on a page and copies the hex code. And then you can literally see what ChatGPT is going through under the hood, right? This is kind of a chain of thought, right? So if I were to do this in a normal, GPT-4o, I would probably go through a similar process, and I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with ChatGPT. So even if you don't have a great use case right now for O1 Preview, O1 Mini, I encourage you to use it just to get used to getting outputs that you need. Because yes, right now I'm not going to say it's useless, but it's not very useful because it can't work with your data. You can't talk to it like you can talk to other modes in ChatGPT. It can't browse the web. It can't use advanced data analysis, but those tools will be coming to the O1 models soon. Teams, if you're not already using Teams or Enterprise, you probably should. All right, if I'm being honest. Here's what I see as the future of work. Your company is going to have your large language model of choice, right? For many companies, that might be Microsoft 365 Copilot, or it's Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, right? So I encourage you. I think right now it's not really close. I think ChatGPT is the most capable model. I actually think it's more capable in some instances than even Microsoft 365. It just depends. But I'd say if you're not a Microsoft 365, if your entire organization isn't using Microsoft 365 Copilot, then you should be looking at either a Teams or an enterprise account. And in some instances, right, so a company just hired us to help them through this process. They know it's going to take them about 9 months to get all of their data in, because they're a huge multi-billion-dollar company. It's going to take them about 9 months to get their data ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So what they're doing in the interim is essentially using ChatGPT Enterprise as a sandbox account. So all of their employees can get ready for once all of their data is ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Yeah, and there's a lot of added features and benefits to using, specifically when it comes to security, data privacy, etc., to using a Teams or an enterprise account. Cross chat memory. People always ask me all the time, hey, should I use should I enable memory? Should I use custom instructions? And for the most part, I say no. Because memory just on its own, it haphazardly decides what it should kind of commit to the memory, and then it's going to apply that. So let's say let's say you're using ChatGPT for 10 different use cases in your company right now. Let's say for one thing, you really want short summaries, right? And you upload documents and you ask for short summaries. It might apply that to your memory, but then in other instances, you're going to want the reverse. You're going to be sending it bullet points, and you might want long form content, right? So it's very difficult to manage this memory feature that people think is groundbreaking. It's not. I'd say if you are a serious ChatGPT user, I would not be using memory. And similarly, custom instructions are they're a little more useful, but they're not very useful if you are a power user of ChatGPT. All right, quick review. Let me know. Let me know in the chat. You guys decide this. We're going to do some overviews. So we're going to do a quick refresher on expert chats, PPP, refined queue. Do you want me to go fast, medium, or slow? All right. So we're going to do a quick refresher. We're going to do it either way. So you guys let me know. Just vote fast, medium, or slow, because we have a lot to get to. All right. We've got a couple votes for fast. I know we got a small crowd today. Fast, medium. Okay. That's fine by me. I can literally, I'm like a speed control on YouTube. You can put me to 1.25, 1.5. So it sounds like I should probably go to about 1.75. I'll do that, right? Do you guys do that, or is it just me? I can't listen to anything anymore, like unless it's on like 1.75. All right, we're going 1.75 here. Here's a review. Expert chats. So when you start a new chat inside of ChatGPT, that chat knows both nothing and everything. So its outputs are going to be determined by, are you playing by the rules, and are you essentially training the chat? So we want to create an expert chat inside of ChatGPT for one specific skill set. And then you go through the prime prompt polish, and then name that chat. When you need that chat, you go back and use it. Depending on how often you use ChatGPT, you should probably start with a memory recall. All right, more on that in a bit. But one expert chat per skill set, Whenever you need that skill set, you go find it, do a memory recall, and you're off to the races. So similarly, I say it's like training a new employee. All right, you go through a process with a new chat. You onboard it, go through training, reinforcement learning, feedback, testing, and knowledge sharing. All right. So quick PPP overview. All right, so when we are priming, we're going through refine Q. We're essentially doing some background, we're training. All right, prompting, this is the first time that we actually ask for an output. Where normally we are not asking for an output when we are priming. We are turning ChatGPT into a consultant and we're training it. Then polishing, this is kind of where we go through this concept of shots. We go through input, output examples, all right? Here's a hot PPP tip, minimum 3 rounds. You're actually going to go through a lot, but think of it like that. 3 steps, minimum 3 rounds of back and forth. It's actually a lot more, but minimum. All right. So here's priming. Refine Q. So again, I think the future of work, we're going to be working with model routers. What that means is I'll have a query, and I think something super smart like an O1 is going to see, okay, this is going to go to this model. I think in theory, you know, OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, they're going to have tens of thousands of models in the futures that are extremely fine-tuned for one very specific task. But until then, you have to understand these models are huge, right? They're general models. They can be dumb. So when you go through priming in Refine Q, what you are doing is you are making the model smaller, smarter, and more specific for your specific use case. We do that with Refine Q. This is just a priming technique. In all of this, keep this in mind, this is turning ChatGPT into a consultant. We are not asking for an output. So let's go through this step by step. I tell people literally just type it out, put a space between each paragraph. So role, we assign ChatGPT a role. We need to give examples of inputs and outputs. We need it to fetch insights. So that's F and I. The big thing is we need to give ChatGPT the most up-to-date and accurate information specific to our task. If you upload a PDF or if you give it access to a website, remember that is just a book on the bookshelf. You have to grab the actual insight you need and put it into the context window of the chat. Otherwise, it's just like thinking, oh, I'll just have a library of information. Okay, well, if you walk into a library, that doesn't mean you're instantly smarter. Okay, you have to put the actual insights you need to make the model smaller, smarter, and more specific into the context window. Then we need to narrate or tell ChatGPT the narrative of our audience and their pain points. We need to explain the expectations. And then last but not least, we explicitly say, do not give us output. Whatever you are training this chat on, you specifically say, don't give me an output, ask me questions. All right. And then keep in mind memory recall. All right. So ChatGPT still, unless you're on the enterprise plan, it has 32,000 K context window. That's 32,000 tokens. That's about 28,000 words. So that's 28,000 words of back and forth. And then ChatGPT is going to start to forget things. All right. So think of all, the training that a good employee needs. It's going to be a lot of back and forth conversation. So you need to do a memory recall, which essentially think of it as like creating an abridged version, and then you put it at the bottom of the context window, right? So if things kind of go up to the top and then they get kicked out, and then ChatGPT starts forgetting because it only remembers the most recent 28,000 back and forth words. Its words count, your words count. So you need to do kind of a memory recall to put all that in the bottom of the context window. All right. Then we finally prompt. All right. And then prompting is the easiest thing. So remember the analogy of, marinating or aging the steak. Grilling it is actually the shortest one, and then you tent it. So same thing. Prompting is usually the quickest part because it's the first time that we actually ask for an output. So all we do is we remind of the role, remind of the audience, remind of the pain points, remind of the angle and tone, remind of the copy requirements, and we get some garbage, right? No matter what you're doing, the first time it's going to be garbage. You need to polish. Polish, think teacher with red pen, right? Circling things that are good and you're telling it what's good, crossing out things that are bad, and writing what should be there. So we talk about shots, right? So similarly, like a 3-shot prompt will always do better than a 0-shot prompt. A shot is essentially an example that you give a model, right? Input, output, good, bad, why, right? So that's a pairing, and you need to teach the model when you polish what's good, what's bad, and why, right? So navigate, I like to say that's a hands-off GPS. You do it general. You give, hey, here's what the input was. The output is a little to this. Please do it again, right? So you're doing input, output, the pairing, good, bad, why, regenerate. All right. So navigate, that's hands off. You're giving general examples, general feedback. Then when you steer, you do specifics. You specifically, that's the teacher. When you cross out the sentence and you write the correct sentence above it and you explain why, do that back and forth. And then you don't stop until the skill set has been trained. So you don't stop when you are happy with the output. You stop when the skill set has been trained. And if you do that correctly, it's usually pretty good. All right. That is the 1.75 version. The 1.75 recap of Prime Prompt Polish. Any questions on that before we move into the post PPP tips and tricks? Let me know in the chat. Are we good? Do we need to hit rewind? Control me just like YouTube. We're good? All right, Yvonne, Adam, thanks, guys. Suzanne, appreciate it. Let's get into the juicy stuff. All right. I'm not even ashamed about this anymore, y'all. I use Edge, and I like it. It felt weird at first. One of my biggest tips is start using Microsoft Edge. All right. So it is based off of Chrome. So it's built on Chromium. So I'm addicted to Google Chrome. I have been. I have thousands of extensions. I have multiple extensions in Chrome that just help me manage extensions. So you can log into your kind of Chrome account and import everything over into Microsoft Edge. The reason why I like Edge is it gives you just a nice interface to talk with AI about whatever you have going on. So sometimes people ask and they say, hey, Jordan, what if I'm going through this priming process of ChatGPT and I need to give it all these examples and answer all these questions, right? Because the last part of priming in Refine Q is questions. And a lot of those questions are going to require additional research, right? Maybe you need to give it 3 examples of something and you don't know those. You can obviously ask ChatGPT, right? And then you can pick and choose. But if you do it in the actual ChatGPT window, what you're actually doing is kind of muddying up its memory. So all you need to do, so what I have here, this is one screen. And I split the screen into 2 browsers, all right? And then I just pop out the Copilot. So I can actually be talking on one screen, not even a big screen, with my main ChatGPT window. I can highlight anything in Microsoft Edge, and I can send it to the Copilot banner. So I'm using the GPT-4o technology. It's the same technology right there. And then I can even pop up a third one, right? So this is a huge hack, both to keep your kind of context window intact, to not muddy it up and confuse ChatGPT, and to do a lot of research. And the great thing is, obviously, Microsoft Copilot, within Edge, it's connected to Browse with Bing. It has a lot of these features, the same features and functionality. Even if you have a free account, it's pretty good. The free account's pretty good. You still get GPT-4o access, Browse with Bing, Dolly, all of that right there in the sidebar. All right. Did you guys know that? I don't know if anyone else has picked up on that trick. It's a huge time saver. It's a huge time saver. All right, here's a couple other ones. So temperature checks. All right. So this example is easiest to talk about creativity. So essentially, this screenshot here, I had ChatGPT write some content. Okay. Then I said, let's take a temperature check on this. Please rate the creativity level of the content from 1 to 10. A 1 is very low creativity. It's the most straightforward, robotic, dull writing possible. A 10 would be the most creative, colorful, and vivid prose known to man. And then I say, hey, give me a temperature on creativity. So it goes through, it carefully analyzes its response to me, and it says, hey, from a creativity standpoint, this is a 2 out of 10. It's a little bland, right? So then all I have to tell ChatGPT is, yo, crank this up to a 6, and then let's rewrite it, right? Or crank this temperature up to a 10, and then let's rewrite it. So anything that you can put a number on, any type of scale, right? It's just easiest to talk about this with content writing, but you can do something like simple and complex, right? Hey, a 1 is the simplest thing that a first grader can understand. A 10 requires a PhD. What's the complexity level on this from a 1 to 10, right? And then you can say, okay, well, hey, let's redo this whole thing, right? Maybe you're putting together an outline pitch for internal stakeholders, and it seems a little complicated, right? So you can just do a similar temperature check on anything as long as you set the measure, right? It saves so much time versus try to prompt engineer your way to something. I think the new Canvas mode inside of ChatGPT really helps with this. But again, setting a temperature check is amazing. Another example, confidence levels. All right, someone emailed me a while ago and said, hey, I found this old test from 1912. Do you think ChatGPT could ace this thing? I said, I don't know, let's try. So I uploaded it. I said, can you solve these problems? All right, it went through, it transcribed this old article from 1912, apparently, and it went through and it gave me some answers. All right, so then I said, let's do a confidence check. Let's take the temperature. All right. A 1 is you have no confidence in your response. A 5 is you have an average level of confidence. And a 10 is there's zero possibility that anything you typed could be disproven even by an expert. Here's the thing with large language models, y'all, they are trained in their system prompt to be a helpful assistant. Okay. So generally, if they are not 100% sure about something, they're not going to be like, sorry, I'm not sure. They're trained to be helpful. All right. But also being helpful often means not being wrong. So what that leads to is it leads to a lot of vague buzzwords and really ChatGPT not being definitive or decisive. Have any of you guys witnessed this before? Generally, if you go through refined Q, you're not going to run into this. But in general, large language models are meant to be quote unquote helpful assistants. So even if they're not 100% confident in something, they're still going to drown you in content and buzzwords because they think, okay, well, even if I'm not 100% sure, I'm going to try to be as truthful as possible and just throw in a bunch of words, right? That's literally what they're trained to do. So you can run this. And then it went through and it told me, hey, on some of these calculations, my confidence level is a 10. And then it's saying for factual recall questions, because of my last update, my confidence level would be an 8 or a 9. Right? So even at an 8 or a 9, you have to think, okay, is this truthful or not, right? You would obviously want to, in this example, give it access to go browse with Bing, find additional information that it needs that may not be in its training data, and then go back and you can run the same temperature check again. No, hey, Adam, I promise you, Workflow, Microsoft did not plug me. Before I had a Microsoft sponsorship, I've always been a big fan of Edge, right? And hey, if you don't believe me, I don't let anyone, like, I don't care who a partner is, Adobe, Microsoft, we got them both as partners. If something's not good, I say it like it is, right? I had a review of the new Copilot, the web version, and there are some things that weren't very good. There are some things that were great. There are some things that weren't very good, and I put the video out there, right? All right. So let's talk about what we do in business, y'all. Let me know by, I know you're kidding, Adam. I just had to have some fun with it too. All right. Let me know in the chat, what percentage of your day, I'm putting mine down. What percentage of your day do you do these things? All right. So meetings, that can be the preparation for meetings, the email follow-up, learning. So you're reading things, white papers, blog posts, etc., taking notes on what you read, writing, right? So writing emails, writing internal docs, updating SOPs, analyzing. So literally analyzing spreadsheets, looking at charts, right? analyzing your competitors, presentations, right? Sales calls, pitches, preparing for those things, putting together, PowerPoints, keynotes, right? All those things. What percentage of your day is doing those things? Yeah. Adam says 100. All right. Yvonne says 80 to 90. Yeah, I'm at 90. Suzanne just says, yeah, like all day. Yeah. What else is there? Lunch, I guess. Right. 90. Okay. So point proven. The majority of, if you are a knowledge worker, if you sit in front of a computer, right, which was what most of us do, and a company pays you for your knowledge, right, they hope that whatever is in your brain, you can create additional business value for them based on what's in your brain, your ability to follow directions, work with your company's data, work within the lines of a job role, company description, right? Guess what? That thing, what we do in business, this is what large language models are the best at. They're the best at these things, right? Right now, they can't go to the meeting for you, although Zoom is releasing AI avatars that go to meetings for you, right? But Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, right? You get these meeting summaries, right? Learning, even browsers now. Browsers by default can help you learn better by whatever content is on the page, whether you're reading a PDF, whether you're watching a YouTube video, whatever, right? Writing, that's an easy one, right? ChatGPT everywhere, browsers, extensions everywhere. Analyzing, right? Claude is great at analyzing data. Advanced data analysis, great. Gemini, pretty good as well, all right? And then presentations, people don't know this. Gen AI and large language models are a great presentation partner. It can help you plan them. It can actually help you create slides. I do things all the time. I had a keynote last week in Austin. I went through my keynote, took the transcript, put it through multiple large language models, had them all dissect it, help me improve it, right? These are things, what we do in business are all things large language models do better than humans. That's the reality. I know everyone likes to have some sense of pride and like, oh, I'm a human. Large language model can never do anything like me. Yeah, I can. I give the example all the time. I won national writing awards back in the day as a journalist, Pulitzer Fellowship. ChatGPT is a better writer than me, right? If you know how to work these AI systems, they're better than you. They're better than you, right? You might have to do a little bit of training. You might have to share your company data. But this is what we do in business, and AI is better than us. So I'll say this. I would have to spend many hours going through all the different roles, but I think for the most part, you can do so many of those things, both inside of ChatGPT and doing them with GPTs, all right? So much of what we're doing in PPP Pro is applying what the capabilities of ChatGPT and GPTs to what you do in business. All right, so most of you guys probably know custom GPTs. All right. Yes, Adam, I've done probably at least 3 or 4 different reviews on our YouTube channel about different ways you can build slides and presentations inside of ChatGPT. It can actually do it without even using any GPTs. But yeah, there's GPTs that can help you do that as well. But let me know, how many GPTs have you guys used before? Do you have like one? Have you used 100? It's kind of like apps on your phone, right? I feel people either use like 2 or they use like 200. So there's a lot of both GPTs in the store as well as creating custom GPTs, right? Yeah, there's so many of them. There's things that are for business, and then there's things that are, great for even your personal life. All right. If you are brand new to the GPT store, it's a little better now. So I recommend, even before you jump into a task, right? See if there's a GPT for that, right? Kind of like the whole, there's an app for that. Because you can still go through the prompt polish process by using a GPT from the directory. Right, I call it a directory, not the GPT store. All right, so you can search for them, you can explore the ones that you've already used, and you can create your own. So let's go through our GPT essentials. All right. So again, this is where we apply ChatGPT's capabilities to what we can do in business. All right. First and foremost, what you need to do is always be aware. I always do this quiz sometimes, and I need a break to sip on my water. Does anyone remember the knowledge cutoff for ChatGPT? Sorry, for GPT-4, the 4.0 family, right? What's the knowledge cutoff? This is so sad. It's so heavy, and it's like I have water, but it's all ice, and there's like no water. I'm so thirsty. I'm gonna get raspy. And then I see a can, and I'm like, oh, I'm saved, but it's empty as well. All right, knowledge cutoff. Does anyone know? All right, Suzanne got it. October 2023. So you don't need a reminder. You know it's October 2024. So best case, absolute best case, is the data inside of ChatGPT on its own is more than a year old. All right. Even though they say October 2023, most of the data inside of its training is much, much older than that. All right. That's just kind of when the training wrapped up. So you need to, especially when you go through refine Q. All right. So remember that fetch and insights. So one thing I like to do is to use different GPTs in that process. So you need to always, again, remember, you need to bring in more accurate, up-to-date data, strategies, information that is past the knowledge cutoff date. October 2023 might as well be like opening an encyclopedia, right? You guys remember the, what is it, Encyclopedia Britannica, right? You might as well be doing that. It is that old. It is ancient. You should never be using any information by default. I don't care, even if you are a history professor. History is changing all the time. So let's go over some of the basics. You need an internet-connected GPT. All right. So browse with Bing is pretty good, but you can't go to a specific website. You can steer it there with a targeted browse with Bing call. I have examples of that later, but it's best to use an internet connected GPT so you can send it to specific URLs. I like VoxScript, WebReader, WebPilot is another great one, right? And also think of different ways that you can bring in your company's up-to-date information, all right? Similarly, YouTube. Great information on YouTube. People think like, oh, well, if you have Gemini, you have a great connection to YouTube. Well, okay, well, you can just use YouTube GPTs, right? So YouTube summary and video insights are two of my favorite. Data analysis. These GPTs are not as needed as they once were because the advanced data analysis mode inside of GPT, even though it is technically in the Omni model, GPT 4.0 Omni, but the mode itself has gotten updated twice. So I don't think these are as needed as they previously were. However, if you want to, as an example, quickly work with Google Sheets, the Sheet GPT is really good. The Excel GPT has some features and functionalities that you can't have by default. Some Excel functions that ChatGPT Advanced Data Analysis struggles with. All right. Automation. Let's talk about these. Zapier. So one downside of GPTs, I don't know why my nose itches today. Someone out there is talking about me, hopefully something good. The downside with ChatGPT in general, and I should also talk about this as almost a warning. Just because you can do something in ChatGPT doesn't mean you should do everything in there, right? Sometimes it's actually way better to not do something in ChatGPT, but I think it's always important to start to try it, right? That's why we talk about the 5-5-5 rule. You should try different processes in ChatGPT because there's a good chance you can start connecting all the different pieces that you do and then sprinkling in a little bit of automation. But You're not going to see GPTs from Google. You're not going to see GPTs from, I don't know, MailChimp. You're not going to see GPTs from Salesforce, right? So you can't always work with all of your tools and data, but guess what can? Zapier. And Zapier has a great GPT. Zapier connects to, last I checked, something like 7,600 different SaaS products and tools, including all the big enterprise companies. So that's, again, a way where you can start doing these processes inside ChatGPT. Also, if this, then that, a great automation GPT. Knowledge, right? You gotta be smart. When we talk about this at the beginning, right? When we go through Refine Q, being able to start with great high quality sources, right, is imperative. All right, because even if you're using Browse with Bing, guess what it's doing? The internet's full of garbage. All right, so you can do some targeted Browse with Bing calls, but you still might just be getting the least smelliest garbage out there. All right, so using these GPTs like edX, Wolfram, and Scholar AI is a way to bring in more qualified and quality information when you are starting your chat, when you're starting PPP, when you're starting your prompt engineering, right? A good example, right? Like Perplexity. They have a great mode where you can kind of just choose the source type. So this is a way, where you can kind of prioritize, kind of scholarly knowledge or research in the beginning. Business productivity. Someone was asking earlier. Smart Slides, a GPT that makes you slides, right? Literally, you can, it's free. You go in there, you click it. It takes you to an external site, but it's already made. And then you just file save as, right? So people don't understand all of the different productivity tools that are inside of ChatGPT just with GPTs, right? So Smart Slides, great. Doc Maker, the ability to save documents in a variety of formats. Again, ChatGPT doesn't announce this, but you can actually save and tell ChatGPT because advanced data analysis has gotten better. But let's say you need to do a bunch of research, right? Let's just do an actual example here, okay? Let's do an example that many of us do. This is an example literally I was doing last week. Obviously, I was doing it with ChatGPT, right? But let's pretend AI didn't exist. Okay, so I was putting together my presentation for a keynote speech I was doing last week, right? How this works, right? I always like to have the most up-to-date information. All right, so without AI, I would have to manually go to Google. All right, I would have to manually read all of these articles. All right, I would probably have to take notes on all these studies, these reports. I'm looking at, the newest, business studies, how AI is impacting work, all this. I would have to, first of all, manually search, manually read all the articles, manually analyze them with my brain, manually type things out. Then I would have to start looking at all my notes. I would go through a process because I'm reading all these articles. I'd have to go through a process. I would have to rewrite them. I would have to start putting them in an outline, almost like a slide format, right? So I'd have to rearrange all that knowledge, and then I'd have to then start manually putting all of that into a presentation, right? And then maybe after all that, I might export that as a PDF, or maybe I actually did have to send over, an outline overview. So I might have to save it all as a Word document or a PDF to send it over because I'm not done designing my slides, right? You can do all that with ChatGPT right now. And I did a big chunk of that with ChatGPT, right? Helping me, again, you got to keep the human in the loop, right? So I'm not 100% automating anything, but I can probably get about 80% of the way there in 20% of the time. Now I can do that research with ChatGPT with targeted browse with Bing calls by using some of those internet connected GPTs that I told you about before. I can have ChatGPT do that analysis to literally use smart slides in saying, hey, based on all of this information in the context window that I essentially went through, and I used ChatGPT to analyze and to personalize the most up-to-date information from 30 different web pages over 3 or 4 different prompts. Hey, analyze all of this information into a 24-page slide outline using smart slides. And literally right there, I could have my entire presentation, a draft of it, done in minutes, where this would usually take many, many hours, right? So that's when when we talk about PPP Pro, it's all about applying this toward business. And so much of this is knowing the tools in your tool belt. Right? DocMaker, another great one, the ability to save any information that you have in any format. So, it's ChatGPT is great at making little tables. It's great at making, literally interactive spreadsheets. You can save that. Save it as a PDF. You can save something as JSON. You can save something in HTML. You can save something as PowerPoint, right? By using DocMaker. Whimsical diagrams and Diagram Show Me, kind of similar. There's a little overlap, but this is another great one, right? Visual learning, I think, is huge. Right? Multimodal learning is huge, right? Like taking very advanced topics that you're researching, right? You can use Browse with Bing, or you can use an internet connected GPT, send it, maybe you're reading a white paper or something like that, use an internet connected GPT, say, hey, highlight every single important point across this entire article. And then in the same chat, then you can use like Diagram Show Me or Whimsical Diagrams and say, hey, based on all of this information, please make me, 3 different visuals that will help me better learn and retain the information contained in the context window. Again, chaining together multiple points of manual learning, it's just getting the most out of AI. It's just unlearning good habits, right? Those habits I told you about, I'd go through, I'd read all this information, I'd type down the most important stuff, I'd take my notes, I'd reread my notes, reformat them, put them in another thing that, starts, right? I have these tools now. I have these GPTs. ChatGPT is so powerful for so much of that day-to-day, right? That 80%, 90%, 100% of that manual knowledge work that I asked you guys about in those 5 categories. We just covered all of it in GPTs. And then Mixerbox Chat Drive. I like that. You can just more easily connect to your cloud storage. All right. So organizing GPTs. Because chances are, maybe after that, you got a little inspired and you're going to start trying some, but you got to be able to organize your ish, right? So what people don't know is when you mention GPTs, which is what you need to be doing, all right? It's only going to, the only GPTs that you can mention are ones that you built, the 10 most recent that you've used, or anything that's in your sidebar, all right? Trust me, I've used hundreds of GPTs, and a lot of times I'm left searching and I'm hitting the @ button and I'm like, where's that GPT? Well, essentially, it doesn't have an unlimited memory of GPTs unless it is one of those 3 things, unless you built it, unless it's one of your 10 most recently used, or unless you've pinned it in your sidebar. So if you use a GPT, make sure to go there and click that Keep in Sidebar. It's going to make it easier to reference later. There's also when you have a Teams or an enterprise account. So whether you're building your own GPTs or using others, you have a lot more control over what the rest of your team can or cannot do when it comes to GPTs. Mentions. So this is what I talked about. You should always, and I talked about this in the normal PPP, but it is that important. An overlooked benefit of ChatGPT is people are not using the context window to their advantage and not working with multiple GPTs within the same context window. Okay, so here's what that means. You can only work with one GPT at a time. However, think of that manual, think of like one manual thing that you do over and over. right? Maybe it's something like I just told you, right? Maybe you're doing a process of you're reading information on the web, you're taking notes, and then you're compiling your notes in a different format, right? Very common, task across jobs, right? Across roles. Think of using 3 different GPTs and keeping that all in the same context window, right? So first, using an internet connected GPT, all right, you're pulling and extracting all that information, and then maybe second, you're using like a doc maker GPT or something like that to put it all in a document. So you can save it more easily. And then maybe, third, you need to take all that information and you need to extend it. You need to make it longer. So you can have ChatGPT take all these bullet points, turn all these bullet points, into 3 to 5 paragraphs each. And then from there, take that and put it into a presentation, right? So a huge benefit is, at mentioning different GPTs in different steps of those processes, and then keeping all of that in the same context window, which is why you should be working in the default mode of ChatGPT and not in the GPT mode. All right. So yeah, don't work in this mode. I already warned you guys against this in the normal PPP course, but you don't know. You don't know the features and functions that GPTs have or don't have, right? They can be disabled. It might have custom instructions that are screwing you up and you don't even know it. So always work when you need GPTs, work with them in the same context window using the default chat mode of ChatGPT. All right, so then, example, once you're done with one, you can X out and then keep all that good information in the context window, right? So as an example, what I did here is I said, hey, use the web reader GPT. I gave it a website on the youreverydayai.com. I asked it for, I said, please give me a 1-sentence summary of what this page is about. And then if I wanted to, I could use like Veed GPT to make a 30-second video about the main topic that I got through the other GPT. Make sense? Are we tracking? Yeah. Sorry, y'all. My voice. Can you guys hear this? Ugh. I'm losing it. I'm losing my voice. Okay. How to train ChatGPT on your data. This is the fun stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about custom GPTs and your data. All right. You have a lot of control, but you got to know the options. All right. So let's talk about it. And let me know in the chat, how many custom GPTs have you built? So earlier I asked you how many you've used. How many custom GPTs have you built? Sorry, Adam, I missed this, this question, my bad. So at mentioning just literally means anytime you're in GPT, like social media, how you can at someone or mention someone, you just click the add button and it's going to auto-populate those GPTs, the 10 last used, anything in your sidebar, and anything that you've built. So essentially, when you send a query, if there's a GPT, if you've mentioned one, it's going to send your query technically through that GPT, but you can keep it in the context window. All right, 0. That's all right. Building one now, Suzanne. All right. So let's talk a little bit about custom GPTs. Maybe I can save you a lot of time. So remember, even after you go through prime prompt polish, I talk about this, you can add one essential, extra step where you can convert all of that into custom instructions for a GPT. That's probably the best way to create a GPT is by first going through prime prompt polish. All right. So as a reminder, you can create GPTs, you can go to the GPT directory, or if you have a Teams or enterprise plan, you can see what all of your coworkers have built and use that. Huge time saver, right? We worked with a pretty big company. They had people they had employees in like, I don't know, four continents, something like that. And like just having an enterprise account and having essentially a team GPT store, huge, saved them countless hours, right? We trained them, obviously, so they got really good at it. So Let's talk about building custom GPTs with your data. The most popular way to do this, obviously, is just using the GPT builder. It's fairly simple, and I'm going to go show you some of the pros and cons and some of our own tips and tricks. So here's what it looks like. All right. If you haven't built one yet, or maybe you just haven't gotten one, we're going to break it down simply. All right. There's a split screen. Okay. So on the left, you build, and on the right, you preview. All right. And on the left, there's technically two different ways you could build. So you can just, in the create, you are literally talking to the GPT builder. So you're essentially talking to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is building the GPT for you. And like prompting, you can do that iteratively. All right. So you could build it today, and tomorrow you could go back into edit it, and you could just type and say like, hey, this isn't working, or hey, now I want to add something, or I want to take this away, I want to simplify it, right? So you can add or modify the GPT iteratively in the create box there on the left-hand side, or you can go to configure. And in configure, essentially that conversation that you have with ChatGPT, it's going to fill in the configuration instructions on box or tab number 2 by itself. It's going to do that automatically based on the conversation that you have with it. All right, so you can just literally just type in a prompt, say, here's what I want the GPT to do, and then it's going to build it. So in the configuration tab at the bottom, here's where you're going to actually work with your data. So you can upload files. So, and then you need to refer to those files in your configuration instructions, okay? Think of it again. I like to have this concept of a library, okay? And you remember the, what's it called? Do you guys remember not the index cards, but what's that called? I could ask ChatGPT right now, but I want to see if my human friends in the audience can help me out, right? You pull out the thing and you flip through, and then it tells you where it is. What's that freaking thing called? What's that thing called? Thank you, Suzanne. The card catalog. Suzanne, thank you. Right. So similarly, how a card catalog tells a human where the information is, especially if you upload multiple files into a GPT, right? You could upload, I don't know, company SOP, you could upload templates, whatever it is, right? In the configuration instruction, you have to have the equivalent of a card catalog, right? Where especially, I think one thing people do, a mistake people make with GPTs is they try to make them too complex, right? I like to say simplify them, because people like to put in 10 files. But if you do that, you got to have a really good card catalog. You have to have good custom instructions and says, hey, if the user asks about A, you need to go to PDF A, right? If the user asks about C, you need to go to Word Doc C, right? So the more complex that you try to make a GPT, I think the worse, number one, the worse the results are going to be, but also the more kind of quote unquote prompt engineering that you're going to need to put in to get good results. Where I always encourage people, right? So even that example I gave you earlier about, this multi-step process of going to the web, analyzing information, taking out notes, putting those notes in a different format, and then putting that format into a presentation. In theory, you could do that all with one GPT and personalize it for every step and put your own company's information, examples, templates, etc. If I was doing that, I would probably make that into 2 or 3 separate GPTs, and then you can just work with them through each step of the process, right? I think GPTs will start to improve over time, right? Especially when they have access to something like an O1 model, or when the GPT builder is actually the O1 model. That's another huge, that's a huge hack, right? We usually only tell that to, the client that pay us, right? But we'll give you a super secret hack since I kept you waiting for 8 minutes. Using the O1 to build your GPTs versus the GPT builder, because the GPT builder is GPT 4.0. And one thing the O1 model it's great at breaking down complex tasks into, essentially very structured output, right? Which is great for then uploading as custom instructions. So speaking of custom instructions, so you'll see now we're in the configure tab. Okay, so if you can type these configuration instructions manually, or if you use the create tab, which is when you're just talking to the bot, right? And it's a bot helping you build the bot. Each iteration, it's going to manually automatically update those configuration instructions, or you can go in them and change them yourself. And then that's where you upload your knowledge base. All right. And then each time you save it, it's going to refresh on the right. And then you can preview and test your GPT right there. All right. So remember, all these PDFs everyone gets this wrong. All right. They just upload hundreds of pages of PDFs. That's not going to help anyone. But the same thing, it's just books on a bookshelf. You have to make sure that your configuration instructions have the equivalent of a card catalog, because regardless, think, even if you're building a GPT for yourself, if in theory you could be asking that GPT about 10 different things, 10 different documents, you got to route it to the right place in the configuration instructions. Otherwise, you're probably going to be disappointed, which is why you just need to keep it simple. All right, here's another tip. I like to do this, and I encourage you to do it too. Create a GPT first, a very simple one, by using the create. So just talk to the bot, tell it what you need, try it out on the right side, give it feedback. Hey, this is pretty good, but it's too long, or it's too short, or it's not specific enough, whatever, right? Once you get something that works fairly well, go ahead and duplicate it. Okay, then what you can do, I like to do this all the time. Then I'll duplicate it. I'll go into the B version. So we have the A version that ChatGPT built. Once it's working well enough, duplicate it. Then you have a B version. Then go into that B version, go into the configuration instructions, read them, and then manually update them. Again, I think this will be better in the future once it's hopefully powered by the O1 model. But right now, humans can still have an advantage, right? So go in, use that smart brain and go in there, look how the configuration instructions are typed out, and go manually fix or rewrite things that you think you can improve upon. Then what I usually do is I'll create a C version, right? Because for some queries, the A version will be better, the ChatGPT version, and then for some queries, the B version will be better. All right. So another thing about understanding your data is the controls. So there's 3 different spots where you need to make sure you don't give ChatGPT access to your data. All right, because there's no reason that they need access to your data. All right. So in your general settings, you can make sure that's going to say improve the model for everyone. By default, it's on. Make sure you turn it off. Also, there's a model improvement. That's that. Turn that off. In the under the configuration tab inside of GPTs, if you toggle, it's hidden, toggle that setting, because it says use convert conversation data in your GPT to improve our models. So that's not the data itself or your documents. That's the conversation data, right? How you interact with it. Usually it's on by default. Toggle that off. You don't need it on. All right. Here's why. And even you need to be careful about how you're sharing your GPTs, because this is Scholar AI, a great GPT. I'm sure they shored this up, but there's essentially little, I wouldn't call them hacks or jailbreaks, but there's little tricks that you can essentially get any GPT that's not properly set up to divulge its information. And a lot of times, companies, even in the configuration instructions, will put some kind of data that they do not want out there, right? So they might say like, oh, you're everyday AI GPT, and here's your clients, here's your customers, here's your revenue, here's this, here's that, right? And you can run then if you publish or share that GPT, if you don't know what you're doing, someone can run a simple prompt like this and get all of your configuration instructions. All right, another way to train ChatGPT with your data is to do it kind of manually and work within the context window, right? I showed you all of those different GPTs. So as an example, you can just upload a GPT, upload a PDF using like the PDF AI GPT, right? Extract everything you need. Then you can go in and click Vox script, and then you can send it to a YouTube video, send it to a page on your website, right? So yeah, you can manually copy and paste or manually save files and upload files, or you can just literally use these GPTs that make that process a lot easier, and then ping between different GPTs and just keep it all in the same context window, right? A great way to train an expert chat on your data. All right. I have zero affiliation with this company, but a lot of times people are like, oh, well, hey, it's so easy to upload a GPT, or sorry, like a PDF, right, into a GPT. I know alphabet soup, right? And they're like, oh, it's so hard to do it manually, right? There's sites like this, PDF My URL, where you can just do one swoop, right? Yeah, you might got to pay a one-time fee, but then you can just save everything. And then you can easily create GPTs to your heart's content. And the reason why something like this is great is if you get a GPT working very, very well for one part of your business, a lot of times all you really have to do is duplicate it and then upload the other PDFs, right? So swap out, right? So maybe you have different, 50 different services at your company, and each service has 5 different web pages. If you can get the baseline working correctly, all you might have to do is swap out, right? So duplicate all those and swap out the PDF. So a lot of times, even just, having a tool like this that saves all your knowledge a little faster. All right. So another option is proper web browsing with targeted browse with Bing calls. So here's an example. All right. Steering browse with Bing, if you do it the right way, it's actually pretty good. It's really improved in the last 6 months. So in this chat example, I said, tell me what's new with OpenAI. All right. I've actually done this multiple times. I always test things out because every time it's not going to even use browse with Bing, but you'll see right there, it says searched 3 sites. So in this instance, right, it's generative AI. It's not going to do the same thing every time. In this instance, it decided, because I said, tell me what's new with OpenAI, that it needed to browse the web. Okay. So I look in there, there's some things good, some things not good, right? Some things that actually aren't very new when I did this. So I said, using browse with Bing, so we're taking it to the next step, right? We're talking about targeted browse with Bing calls. So you are literally steering it to a target and you're calling Bing out. So now I'm saying a little better, use browse with Bing. Please find articles from September 2024 and tell me what's new with OpenAI. All right, looks a little bit better, right? Because I noticed in this first one, it was actually bringing in some pretty old information that I did not want. All right, so again, think of your business use case. This is just an easy example. All right, let's take it a step further. All right, here I said, using browse with Bing, please find articles from September 2024 and tell me what's new with OpenAI. Please review at least 8 different sources for information and make sure they're all from unique domains. So you'll see here, it only went to, the first time it went to 3 sites. The second time it went to 4 sites. So use it as Perplexity, right? With a little prompt engineering and a little practice, right? You can get some great results. So here it literally went to 9 sites. And in this instance, I'm finally getting great information, the information that I actually wanted. All right. So let's pivot here. So let's talk about another option on how to train ChatGPT with your data. So you can use OpenAI's Assistance API. So this is better for developers. It's not terribly difficult, right? But the downside with anything ChatGPT or GPTs, you can really only use them inside ChatGPT. But you can do the same thing, go through the exact same process, and then essentially use OpenAI's API. And what that allows you to do, again, with a little development, is you could have that thing live on your website. Right? Yes, it does require a little more developer know-how, but it's not terribly difficult. So anything that you do inside of ChatGPT, in theory, you can have it live anywhere, and you don't have to force, whether it's your own team, whether it's customers, you don't have to quote unquote force people to go into ChatGPT. And this is, where you start talking about things like fine tuning models, right? Training models to always respond a certain way. Retrieval augmented generation, RAG, right? This is how you kind of do all of those more advanced techniques that have, been around for many years. But, there's other ways to train, quote unquote, chat GPT. This, we're actually just training the GPT, maybe 4.0, 4.0 mini, O1 preview, O1 mini, right? So you can actually bring those to places outside of ChatGPT. These ways, they're not terribly difficult, but much more difficult than the average person can handle, unless you go to third-party tools. I know, scary. So I don't, I'm not paid to tell you these names. I just know which ones are good and which ones aren't. So a lot of these other companies, you pay, right? So even when if you're working through the Assistance API, right, this way, you are paying for the actual usage, okay? So let's just say, I don't know, your company has 10,000 users a day on their website, and they're all using this, right? You're actually paying like gas that's metered, right? You're paying for the actual usage, okay? But you're not paying, aside from having your, ChatGPT account, you're not paying an extra cost aside from usage. So with third-party tools, you are. The benefit here is they are much easier, right? I've done reviews on our YouTube channel where I literally sign up for an account, plug in my data, and have it live on my website in 10 minutes, right? So very, very simple. So, some great tools. Dante AI is a good one. Bot Sonic from Right Sonic. So Right Sonic has been I hate calling tools wrappers, but it's a good GPT wrapper, right? They have a good product, good tool. Chat Thing, one especially, I like Chat Thing. It can work with an XML, on your website. So what that means is it can constantly update essentially your chatbot. If you have dozens or hundreds of pages on your website, right? Like we add at least 2 new pages a day, right? So we don't have to go in there and manually update it. This can essentially always be quote unquote training on your most up-to-date information. Another favorite is Chatbase. So a good thing with Chatbase is if you're heavy Notion users, if you're ChatGPT users, your team, you can access this, kind of ChatGPT inside Slack, right? So not only can it be working with your dynamic data, but you can, access it, even your internal team inside of Slack. Nibble, very similar as some of the other ones. I just like keeping this on here because it's one of the first ones I reviewed and it's still around. All right. So any questions, y'all? We're nearing the end of our journey. We're nearing the end of the journey. We talked about a lot, right? We've talked about really just trying to unlearn things, right? And apply what we learned in Prime Prompt Polish to our business. So we went over a lot, how to train ChatGPT on your data inside ChatGPT, some third-party tools. Now I'm going to talk about some Chrome extensions that work inside of ChatGPT. So now we're going back to inside ChatGPT, but some tools that can extend its capabilities. So one is AI PRM. It's great for prompt management. I'm not a fan of prompts. Obviously, you guys know that. But essentially think of going through the process of Prime Prompt Polish and then getting the equivalent of a custom instructions, right? You can save that with a tool like AI PRM. Also, the AI PRM crew are great follows on Twitter. They're really big into large language models, super smart people. Harpa AI brings in some little bit more AI automation and agentic capabilities. These are all Chrome extensions, by the way, but also work in Edge from the Microsoft browser. Also, Superpower ChatGPT. So this one is not for me, but I know a lot of people like it because you get that prompt management, you get a lot of these more advanced utility features, but then you also get chat management, which is huge, which is something that ChatGPT still doesn't have, right? Like creating folders for all your chats. color coding things, being able to select multiple chats at a time, being able to export them all easily, right? So Superpower ChatGPT, a great Chrome extension, but it does really make the interface pretty busy, which I do not like. So if you don't mind that, I think it's a great Chrome extension to check out. All right, sharing trained chats and ChatGPT. We're at the bottom. I have just a sip left. Good thing we're at the end. I'd have to take a water break. Brought to you by Microsoft Work Lab. All right, so sharing trained chats. So people don't know this. Even your chats that you go through Prime Prompt Polish with, right? You can share those with colleagues if you really want to make their job easier. So at the bottom, at the upper right-hand corner, there's a share tag. You can also make the chat discoverable, which you may or may not want to do, but that essentially allows Google and other search engines to index that chat. You can copy the link and then you can share it with anyone. All right. If you do access GPTs inside there, if they want to continue the conversation, they have to have those same GPTs kind of like quote unquote installed. Also, it is weird if you upload documents and then share that chat with someone. Usually there will be problems with them accessing information from those documents, just FYI. So it's not flawless, but it's an underutilized feature for sure. Then you can manage everything. If you go into data controls in your settings, if you need to delete it, or if you just need to re-grab that link, you can do that there. So maybe you want to make someone's job easier on your team, and then they eat your lunch, and then you can revoke their access, right? Same thing with sharing GPTs. So you can make it for only you. You can make it with anyone with a link. You can make it in the GPT store. And if you're on a Teams or an enterprise account, then there will be an option to share it with that team as well, depending on what the admin sets as share options. But same thing, y'all, being able to build a GPT on something that your colleagues do over and over and over and over again. If you're on a Teams plan, on an enterprise plan, I'm telling you, do that. It's not only the right thing for your company. It's going to be great for you. It's going to be great for your company, your career, your department. But there's no need right now to be doing so much of this manual, mundane knowledge work that large language models do better. So build something, test it, right? Make sure you still keep human in the loop at the right time. But this GPTs, y'all, can save hours a day, especially if you have team members that are doing repetitive, mundane work. All right. I believe this is our last section here. So I love talking about advanced data analysis. So call out to the mode. So similarly, I gave you the example earlier, the OpenAI example. I ran that prompt multiple times. Sometimes it didn't even use Browse with Bing. Same thing. You can upload a spreadsheet and say, analyze this spreadsheet. It may or may not use advanced data analysis. So remember, it is technically GPT-4o is Omni model, whereas previously GPT-4, GPT-4 Turbo, it was technically multiple models that would talk to each other depending on what you needed. So advanced data analysis used to kind of be its own kind of mode, right? So sometimes if you just say, analyze this spreadsheet, it's not actually going to use the advanced data analysis mode. Usually it will, right? It'll make a decision. It'll say, okay, it's asking me to analyze. It's uploading a spreadsheet. I should probably use advanced data analysis, but it's not always going to do it. So make sure you always call to the mode and say using advanced data analysis. And y'all, advanced data analysis is bonkers good. It's so good. Even if you're not a data person, you have so much access to data that you probably don't even know. So as an example, I just exported a bunch of information from our YouTube channel. All right. I upload that. And you don't even have to be good at data. You're going to say, tell me what this is. Tell me what this is, right? ChatGPT is going to look at it. It's going to tell you what it is. And then also the thing I like about advanced data analysis now, like Google gives you like suggested searches, it gives you, I can just click one button. All you do, upload a spreadsheet, say, what is this, yo? It's going to tell you, and then it's going to give you little buttons to click, and you can start gobbling up that data and making sense of it right away, and you don't even got to type. Or you can obviously put ChatGPT to work and say something like, give me 10 different visualizations that advanced data analysis can run, right? So you can say, hey, based on all this data, you've crunched it, give me 10 different visualizations that I could, in theory, run. And it's going to give them to you. And then you can just say, oh, okay, well, go ahead and do this one. Using advanced data analysis mode, go do number 3. All right. And it's going to go through, it's going to do all this, fancy business intelligence data visualization. It's going to run some Python there, and it's going to spit something out. That's pretty good. All right. That's pretty good. It's an interactive graph, something that I didn't have access to inside of YouTube. Right. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. This is helping me make better decisions. It's helping me save time, right? A literal interactive dashboard. Claude Artifacts is great at this as well, but a lot of people don't know how good advanced data analysis actually is. So yeah, that one's not too pretty. Usually when I get something like that, I send a screenshot and I say, hey, things are too jumbled. Can you create another one? I just wanted to show you can get something at least decent, right? But that still works. You can hover over those little dots, and then it's a little easier to see. That's it, y'all. We made it to the end. Woo! Good thing, because I have like 3 sips of water. Correction, I have 0 sips of water. My gosh. Thirsty man today. All right. I hope this was helpful, y'all. So you made it through our free PPP course. You made it through our free PPP Pro course. We also do this for businesses. That's not free. I'm not going to hit you with a hard pitch. I'll just say some of the biggest companies literally in the world hire us to train their teams on generative AI, right? So in our PPP business course, right? So maybe your team already has a Teams plan. Maybe you're trying to go from Teams to Enterprise. Maybe you're jumping straight to Enterprise. This is where it helps to bring in experts like us. This is kind of what we do. So here's what we do. We go through an onboarding call with your team. Then we prepare a training. We send you over our outline. You approve it. We essentially do, like, think of the PPP normal, PPP Pro times like 5. And that's what we do for your training, except it's all bespoke, right? None of these theoretical examples. We are actually helping you teach prompt engineering to up to 50 people, but using actual use cases for your business that, even just by going through the use cases, save you time, save you money, right? And then at the end, we actually give you access to those chats. We build some GPTs, and then we don't run away when we're done. We do 4 live training sessions to follow up. All right, so if you want access to that, go ahead. You can send me an email at info@youreverydayai.com. Put PPP Biz in the subject line. I don't know if we're going to be doing any more of these this year, so we might have to wait until January. Yeah, maybe we might do one more, but probably not, because they're very intensive for our team, and we don't like to do a lot of them at once. Partially because ChatGPT is changing all the time, and it does take a lot. And we have a current client going through this right now. So if you want access, we'll kind of put you on the waiting list for once we maybe start this back up. I don't know, February, maybe. Actually, maybe not January. But yeah, if you want access, let us know. We might be able to squeeze you in still here in October if you're ready to go like this week. Otherwise, it might be February, FYI. I just like to be honest with people. So that's it. That's it. That's what we got, y'all. Was this helpful? Did y'all learn anything? I keep reaching for this out of habit. There's literally nothing here. This is terrible. Anyone learn anything? Adam said, a link to this recording. Adam, great question. So the same link that you just clicked to join, you can go click that link at any time and rewatch this to your heart's content. All right. So yeah, you can go rewatch this 100 times or once. All right. Suzanne said she learned a lot. That's great. Thank you, Suzanne. How many hours a day do you work on this? Just curious. This presentation, I probably update it. I probably spend 30 minutes a week updating our trainings. On everyday AI, I spend 12 hours a day. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to do a daily podcast, a daily newsletter, to train big companies. Yeah, it's a lot of work. There's a reason right now my voice is going away because I've already been up and talking for 12 hours. So yeah, so much for AI saving time. No, yeah. What's funny is people assume because the podcast has actually gotten fairly popular, right? We're usually a top 10 tech podcast. Um, and most of these podcasts have teams of like 10. There's two of us, right? There's two of us, and we do a lot of other things, right? So, no, AI definitely saves us a ton of time, but we're doing with like two of us, we're doing what would take a team of 10. So, yeah, we're definitely using AI at the right time in the right places, but hopefully still bringing in that human touch, right? That's why I do these live trainings all the time, because I think even with the other like AI newsletters, right? They all brag, like all the AI newsletters brag about how they it's they do it in 5 minutes, and it's all 100% automated through chat gpt and Zapier, right? Like it's like a bragging thing. I write the newsletter. I write the newsletter by hand, right? By hand, right? Like it's artisanal or something. um and I do these live all the time. I could have my avatar do this, or I could just do it once a year and just replay it. But um, I don't know. I think AI changes so much, and even for me, I get tired of reading AI. I can tell when things are AI generated. I get tired of people just using AI avatars everywhere. I think there's a good time and place for them, right? We use them a little bit on our website, but I like having human interaction in a world of AI, right? So I don't know how I got on that rant. That's it, y'all. I hope this is helpful. Tune in tomorrow. Join us on the live stream. I think we're still waiting for our guest to confirm for tomorrow. Let's see if he confirmed. Not yet. So who knows? Who knows what tomorrow's show will be? I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and figure it out. All right, that's all. That's it, y'all. I hope this was helpful. Peace. Appreciate y'all.